Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the all-new Cryptids and Monsters Cryptid of the Week video. Well, while I'm continuing to decide what videos to do next on my YouTube channel here, be on the lookout for that soon because I'll definitely make a suggestions video soon. I decided to mix in this Cryptid of the Week. As always, it has to do with a random entry from the cryptids.wikia.com website. And on top of that, a lot of people have been asking for more cryptid videos. So what a great way to start off the new year, January 1st. 2021, then with an actual cryptid video here. And what was interesting is that this random entry from that website actually had a hallmark. It called back to a video that I had done around 5 years ago having to do with a very unique monster that's also found in Japan. In fact, looking at both of these together side by side, it's almost interesting to see how similar they are to one another. In fact, they could be cousins of sorts, but still, they're very different from each other as well. But it has to do with this. You're looking at a picture of the one I'll talk about here now. It's known as the Garappa. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating information associated with this very, very unique looking creature. Now, some of you that have seen this picture now, you may be thinking that, yes, I've talked about this cryptid before. And in fact, the one I was mentioning that I talked about 5 years or so ago is this one. This one is known as the Kappa. This one also very, very similar to the Garappa, but they still have their distinct differences. In fact, I'll include the link for it below. If you want to have a chance to check out all the information associated with the Kappa, then you'll be able to check out that link and then get caught up on that part too. But for this go around, let's go ahead and let's talk about the Garappa itself. Now, as far as where it's located, apparently you have to go to southern Japan, the islands of Kyushu. There, if you go around the rivers, lakes, maybe even some other type of streams, that's where you'll find this particular cryptid. It's also been referred to as a water spirit as well, and apparently it seems to be almost revered there by certain sects. So anything involving these sects, they have a, I guess, adoration for this particular cryptid. More on that here in a minute, but first let's talk about its physical characteristics as well. So much like the actual Kappa, this is a creature that has an amphibious look associated with it. In fact, if you look at it more closely, it almost seems to have these very, very long legs and limbs tied to it, much like a frog would, for example. You know how frogs have that tiny body but the super long legs. In fact, this Garappa's legs are so long that when it sits down and it bends its knees upwards, the knees themselves actually go above the head as well. So it gives you an idea essentially of how big it is when it comes to those legs. Plus, it has the shell of a tortoise, and then it has this beak that either resembles a duck or there's some type of creature as well, like a waterfowl. And then it also has this prominent set of long black hair. And then at the very, very top, much like this Kappa, it has like this bony plate on top that kind of differentiates the hair itself. So that part is completely bald, but the rest of the hair just dangles downward from it. So clearly this would be something that would stand out if you happen to see it again within those streams there in southern Japan. But some of the other differences tied between it and the Kappa is this. It has to mainly do with its behavior. While the Kappa is known to be more, I guess you could call social or more out there when it comes to being found, this Garappa is actually much, much shyer. It's definitely one that eludes itself from humans, doesn't necessarily want to wander amongst them. In fact, it tends to avoid populated areas altogether, and you'll be pretty lucky to find it within any of those rivers or lakes that I was mentioning earlier. Apparently, too, it's also found in certain mountains as well. But yes, the whole point is it definitely eludes itself from humans, and then that way, maybe if you're lucky just by accident, you will come across this creature. But yes, it's definitely known for its shyness, and it's often actually heard rather than seen. In fact, it has a very, very distinct call. You'll know you're within the area of a Garappa if you happen to hear something on the lines of this. Foon, foon, foon. I have no idea if I'm saying that correctly. Someone again, please point it out in one of the comments below. But yes, if you hear that from afar, or who knows, maybe close by, there's a chance there that the Garappa is going to be nearby. But still, pretty good luck when it comes to finding it because, again, it's well known to hide from humans, and then that way it wanders back and forth between its home and then whatever it's hunting. That's another thing, too. Apparently, it's an omnivore, so it doesn't really have anything as far as, let's say, tasting humans or any other type of animals that are out there. But as far as those interactions that I was mentioning earlier with humans, get this, even though the encounters are pretty rare, when people do find them, apparently they're known to be pranksters. So the way the story goes is they love to surprise people. Maybe they'll hide in the shadows, maybe they'll hide behind some foliage, whatever is the case, but if you're walking by that area and you happen to be within the presence of this Garappa, then lo and behold, all of a sudden it'll jump out. It'll actually jump out and just love to scare you. Not necessarily like in a bad way, like it's not gonna try to scare you to death or anything like that. It's just more along the lines like people would do to one another when it comes to that. On a little bit more on the nefarious side, apparently it also likes to trick people into losing their way on a path. But the way I was reading this information, it made it seem like, yeah, they may have people, go the wrong way some ways, but otherwise it's not like they're going to make them completely lost and just hopelessly lost and not be able to find their way back. It just seems like it's more on the lines of a trick. I imagine that if, let's say, they do realize, oh my goodness, this actual person is going to be lost forever, that these Garappas will try to do something to be able to get them back on the right path. Also, any interactions, apparently, I'm guessing they like to wrestle with people because if a grown man is actually doing so with this Garappa, they're not going to have much chance. Even though those limbs are really slim and they're upwards, let's say, of a longer length, they're actually pretty wiry with strength. So this thing, whatever it has, it absolutely has a supreme amount of strength. It's that full strength, in other words. You know how when you see certain people, certain individuals, they look skinny, but they have that taut, wiry strength to them that lo and behold, all of a sudden it becomes a surprise afterward. That's what this thing has. So it definitely, if you want to come across it and try to fight it any whatsoever, chances are you're going to highly lose, especially the fact that apparently it enjoys sumo wrestling as well. And that in of itself is a talent. And so here you have this thing that is an expert at it, and it's able to do so with humans with relatively ease. There is one bad note when it comes to these Garappas. It's this. Apparently, when it comes across women, it is very fond of women, so much so that it's more of like a sexual predator, if you could believe that. It's actually known to assault, and on the most horrible side, it's known to rape women as well. I don't know if this is anything like any callback to what this creature does full time, or if it's like, in other words, a small portion of its population that does this. I couldn't find more information on it. Like, in other words, if all of the Garappas do this, or if it's just one bad apple and so on. But no, that seems to be the worst thing associated with these Garappas, is the fact that whenever they come across certain women, that's when those women might actually have a true danger, a true risk associated with them, with this Garappa and what it can do to them. But otherwise, they are known again as mainly being pranksters, and those rare occasions that they come across people. And there's one last thing that they're also well known for, and that's almost like their honor system. They are well known for keeping their word, especially when they're bested by humans. So remember I was mentioning earlier how if you find one, if you wanted to wrestle it, how you're going to lose. Well, chances are, if you do have a slim opportunity of winning, or you happen to capture a Garappa, let's say this Garappa is trying to do a surprise on you, but you in turn flipped everything on it, and all of a sudden you got it trapped. In other words, you surprised it, and now there it is bested. Then they'll actually be forced to promise to do something that the person tells them to do. And most often it seems like the people that find them tell these Garappas, hey, do the right thing. So in other words, stop playing pranks, stop making noises, stop fooling people into going to different paths, and so on. And that is apparently to the death. So these Garappas, once they have that promise done, it's a lot like almost like a life debt. Remember that one associated with Chewie there in Star Wars, how when you save a Wookiee, how they essentially owe their life to you and they serve you for the rest of their life. That seems to be the case here with these Garappas. Once you have this Garappa bested and you make them do a promise that they're not going to do something bad going forward, then that is absolutely for life. Then they'll be able to keep that word up until the very, very end. That's why, again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, there's certain sects, in this case Shinto sects, that are actually revering these Garappas because they are known to keep their word, and that makes them something as far as, I don't know if it's like holy or some other type of high revere or high veneration, but that's associated with these Garappas. And the interesting thing is these Garappas actually go in packs. So the more that these Garappas are captured or bested, and the more of them that have to promise to do less bad things, then that means as a whole, these groups get lesser and lesser violence, if you could even call it that. That's probably too much of a harsh word, but you know what I mean. Like, in other words, more and more of them do less and less bad things, so that makes things better for as a group, the Garappas themselves. So interesting stuff. They've even gone about and apparently told people how to fish certain ways to make sure they can maximize the fish that they're catching, and then how to plant rice fields and so on. So that's why, again, they seem to be mostly revered by certain portions there of Japan. But otherwise, if you happen to be lucky to find one, good luck, because again, it's pretty rare to do so. And if you do, just be cautious of their strength. And again, if you're a woman just out there by yourself, again, you have to be careful that you don't run into these bad apples as well. But that's pretty much it. That's all the information I could find associated with this Garappa. And again, if you want to check out its cousin, the one that I mentioned earlier, the Kappa, then you'll find the link below as well. But anyone there from Japan area, maybe from Kyushu, if you had more information on that and anything else might have missed, then please post those comments to share them, especially if you're local there. It'd be great to hear what any kind of encounter someone might have had there as well. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. And again, Happy New Year, January 1st. Looking forward to a lot more videos for you here. And as always, thank you so much for your viewership. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.